From movie makers, our HOPA game today will focus on a romance novelist. So sit back and get ready to feel the love. For our Throwback Thursday gaming, we're featuring Dana Knightstone, Death at Faring Point, released in December 2010 by Boom Zap Entertainment through Big Fish Games. The story follows writer Dana Knightstone, who traveled to Scotland to look for inspiration for her novel. Whether this was for her very first novel or she's written some in the past isn't clear. While staying in a country estate turned B&B called Hallward Manor, she encountered a ghostly apparition whose name was David. As Dana, the player discovers that during his lifetime, David fell in love with Charlotte, heiress of the Hallward estate. But Margaret, Charlotte's mother, does not approve of their relationship because David is just a local poor artist and, love alone won't put food on your plate, nor would it buy you fancy things. Enter William, Mother Margaret's choice of a husband for Charlotte, not because he reminds her of Colin Firth's Mr. Darcy, but mainly because William was one utterly rich bachelor. Okay, he's probably molded after Mr. Darcy after all, but still, Charlotte loved David more. Then David turned up dead. William, seeing that he doesn't need to cock-block somebody anymore, made his move, but Charlotte rejected him, much to Mummy's dismay. Then Charlotte left England to spend her remaining days in Paris before dying of a broken heart. It's like Game of Thrones. Everyone died. Okay, they all died because basically they're from the Victorian era, and we go fast forward to the present time. And that's when Dana, our player's character's adventure, begins. For starters, Death at Faring Point is a casual game. Casual, I mean, there's no choice of beginner, expert, or custom gameplay here. So if you're one hardcore, mad as a hatter HOPA gamer who wants to play in a difficult as mode, then this game isn't for you. Although it's usually lumped together with other hidden object games, it's more of an adventure genre than HOG. There are a handful of conventional hidden object scenes, but for the most part, the searches are used to suss out clues, inventory items, and pieces to various puzzles. Puzzles are the real name of this game. There are a lot of them, and while there are one or two tricky bits, for the most part, they're very familiar and not terribly challenging. There's nothing here that should hold you up for very long, but if you do happen to get hung up, the usual timer-based hint function will point out objects, complete puzzle steps, or if you're just standing around in a hallway wondering where to go next, give you a shove in the right direction. Visually, the game is a little on the plain side. It's tidy and enjoyable, but not really mind-blowing.
My gut told me to return to Scotland. Maybe at the scene of the crime, I can avenge the lovers' deaths.
The voice acting, which is only restricted to Dana's narration, is clear, decently expressive, and perfectly adequate for the task at hand. I just wonder how the script would have been handled if there are additional voice actors.
Oh, David, it's only you that my poor heart desires.
Oh, aye, lassie. Why can't you leave your ma and we could go to Gretna Green and get married? And we could live in a wee house and have lots of bairns, eh?
Yes, that sounds perfectly divine, David.
The game runs flawlessly on all platforms and has no glitches, bugs, crashes, or strange translation mistakes. Okay, a bit of a background history. In 19th century Britain, laws about marriage were based on the idea that women would get married and that their husbands would take care of them. Based also on this idea, upper and middle class women had to stay dependent on a man, first as a daughter and later as a wife.
She isn't until she is married, then her husband will tell her what her opinions are.
Or in some cases, when the father is dead, an unmarried woman must remain under the custody of another older male relative, like an uncle, a cousin, or a brother, like the case of Georgiana to her older brother Mr. Darcy in the novel Pride and Prejudice, until he marries her off to someone he approves. And upon marriage, a woman's earnings and possessions would automatically belong to her husband. For a country that was then under the rule of Queen Victoria, it's pretty ironic that they had societal norms that pressured women to marry and wanted them to become part of their husband's furniture. If you put this to practice, a person of the lower class who managed to marry a member of the upper or noble class would have felt like they'd hit the jackpot. To the richer party, this spells trouble with a capital T, especially if the said richer party is the girl. So one could just imagine Margaret's horror when she found out that her only daughter is head over heels in love with the painter.
Maybe David is a nice guy and genuinely loved Charlotte as a person rather than her title and her money. But still, society pressure, you know. Now here's the bulk of my criticisms about the game. Again, some are spoilers, so if you'd rather uncover the mystery yourself, skip this. As with many old games, this is a rather short one, even if you have the collector's edition, which has some bonus content. But as I mentioned before, the casual game is mostly aimed at players who wouldn't mind taking their time solving a puzzle with Victorian romantic mush in the background. The characters, although mostly two-dimensional, fit well into the story to create an Austen-esque vibe. I just don't get how Dana manages to wear her pen on her head without suffering from this.
The music is unassuming to the point of being completely forgettable. But then again, such is a common case with old HOPA games. I wonder if this will be the same case when I review the other Dana Knightstone games. Thankfully, the story of David and Charlotte doesn't just end with two ghosts bonking each other. The short bonus game tells us the aftermath of Charlotte's death. Turns out William, isn't the snobbish prat that the main game implied him to be. He's even credited by Dana for saving Hallward Manor from getting sold after Margaret poorly invested in Joseph Sutherland, who bled her fortune dry through blackmail. Margaret hired Joseph Sutherland to bump off David and paid him for his work. Joseph took advantage of this and kept blackmailing Margaret to the point that she lost all her money and nearly all of Hallward estate had William not stepped in and saved the day. If she had the guts to have a starving artist killed, what would stop her from doing the same to a mere stable boy? With Charlotte buggering off to Paris for the remainder of her short life after losing her boyfriend, Margaret, being a rich, lonely, but still good-looking widow, is left with Joseph, who's desperate for some cash, but also quite a pretty boy himself. What if Margaret and Joseph were also having a secret affair?
Could it be that Margaret had to pay Joseph in exchange for his silence on not just one, but two secrets? Ooh, spicy!
Even after Charlotte's death, Margaret made sure that Joseph was paid to keep quiet on what happened to David. What if there's more to this story?
What if the real reason why Charlotte didn't marry William and went to live in Paris was because she's actually pregnant with David's baby and died, not of broken heart, but of childbirth? And Joseph, being David's best friend, then best friend, knew the secret and used it as a leverage on Margaret, who is keen to keep the scandal under wraps.
Shame and scandal in the family.
You know what happens in Victorian England when you're a rich and married girl who gets found out to be pregnant with no present baby daddy? Yeah, your family name becomes dirt. And even if David lived and they managed to get together against all odds, the fact that he's a dirt poor artist and Scottish with no title nor money under his name, will cause the Hallwards to fall from grace in London high society faster than the Dowager Countess's mic drop lines. Shh.
When I'm with her, I'm reminded of the virtues of the English.
But isn't she American?
Exactly.
And why did William just banish Joseph from Hallward Manor when he could just easily send him to prison for embezzling Margaret? Joseph would still have the chance to come back and take his revenge on them. The glaring fact that Joseph's grave was found near David's meant that he didn't really move away from the village. He probably lived incognito for the rest of his life. Or did Joseph die suddenly right after getting banished from the estate? Was he secretly bumped off by William's orders? Which probably explains why his ghost is shown to be a bit hostile, because he died with a grudge. Although Hallward Manor was saved by William from getting sold or torn down, it is now a B&B, and oddly enough, it's only managed single-handedly by a butler, who kind of resembles William. Could it be that William's family lost some fortune and social stature as years went by, which is what happened to many English nobilities in real life, and his descendant is left to manage the place disguised as a butler? Or, given that there's someone in the present time who knew about the love triangle of David, Charlotte, and William, is eager to help Dana find the truth. Whoever that person is, what do they gain from secretly assisting Dana? Could that person be a living descendant of Charlotte? Someone whose great-grandparent was secretly brought up in this world because their mother was not married to the biological father? Overall, I think this game is purely for those who are looking for a casual game with a dash of Bronte sisters and Middlemarch by George Eliot. So that wraps up our Throwback Thursday gaming. Once again, this is the HOPA Gamer, and thank you for watching. Be sure to be on the lookout when we